Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP falls in love with his realtor and really regrets it. I fell for my realtor. Big mistake. I've been in the market to buy a home for the past year or two, but with interest rates being so high, I wasn't in a rush to buy. Anyway, I, male 28, ended up meeting my real estate agent when I went out with friends to a popular local beer garden. She's attractive, and I recall her being very flirty. I mentioned I was in the market for a home, and we ended up exchanging numbers at some point. We ended up going on what I thought were several dates, and for what it's worth, I'm very shy and haven't had a lot of experience in dating. We would meet up after work for a drink or two and mostly chat about non-real estate topics. This is why I thought that maybe she was interested in dating. We never kissed or anything, although she would sometimes touch my arm or shoulder in what seemed like a more than friendly way. She did always seem really busy though, and couldn't stay for more than 30 minutes or so most of the time. After our third date, she told me about this amazing home that just came on the market that met most of my criteria and was close to my budget. The house was move-in ready. Really, all I needed to do was change the paint in a couple of the rooms. The seller renovated and used dark blue paint upstairs. Is this a trend now? I toured the place and quickly decided I loved it and I had to buy it. In hindsight, I wonder if I was more excited about my realtor and trying to impress her than the actual house. Anyway, I decided to put an offer in, and this is where my first warning flag should have been obvious. She mentioned that there was just an open house the day before I viewed the property, and they were expecting at least a handful of offers from that. When I looked on Zillow, I noticed that the property was on the market for 17 days, which I thought was odd that they had waited so long to do the open house to get offers. When deciding on the offer terms, she insisted that if I was serious and not kicking the tires, I had to 1. Put 10% hand money down, 2. Offer at least a little over the asking price, and 3. Waive the inspection. I've had a few friends get into bidding wars and lose many offers, and they started waiving the inspections, so it didn't seem all that unreasonable at the time. I ended up doing 5% hand money, $5,000 over the asking price, and waived the inspection. Big mistake. Fast forward to the inspection, they found the foundation was shifting, and after getting a quote, it would cost around $15,000 to fix it, which ironically enough was less than the hand money I put down. I begrudgingly decided to move forward because everything else about the home I liked. Everything else was fairly normal, except one thing stuck out to me at closing, and it seemed like my agent and the seller were friends, as when I walked in, it sounded like they were chatting about something completely unrelated to real estate. Closing went through, I moved in, and other than the foundation surprises, I've been pretty happy with this place. The realtor was able to meet up again for drinks, surprise, surprise, after closing. Fast forward to last weekend, and I saw the seller from closing out at the same beer garden with his arm around my realtor. She came up to me and said that, oh yeah, they met at closing and blah blah blah, but I'm calling BS. I have no way of proving anything, but lesson learned. Never waive your inspection, and don't fall for anyone who's making money off their interaction with you. I feel so embarrassed in hindsight. Check your state's real estate laws. It's very possible that if there was a relationship there prior to her getting you to buy the house, and that wasn't disclosed, it could be illegal. So I would check your laws. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that his mom is no longer welcome in our house? I'm 30, female. My husband, who's 31, dated Kathy, who's 30, for 3 years while in university. They were planning to get married when Kathy became pregnant, but she confessed that the child may be another man's. They broke up, but a DNA test proved my husband was the father. As such, my husband agreed to co-parent but refused to rekindle the relationship. Very sadly, he was born with a heart defect and he passed at 4 months. Both Kathy and my husband were destroyed, and Kathy ended up moving away. My husband went on to meeting me, and we were married 2 years ago. My mother-in-law, who's 60, has always carried a torch for Kathy and thought that they should get back together when the baby was proven to be my husband's. Then the next reason became so that Kathy and my husband could be there for each other. Unfortunately, mother-in-law has never made it a secret of not liking me, to the extent where she has excluded me from family photos because I am not family. My husband has always stood up for me in these scenarios. My mother-in-law's birthday was last weekend, and my husband wanted to throw a celebration at our house. We went the whole 9 yards with a cake and decorations. My husband also asked for my help picking out a very expensive handbag as a gift. I love my husband and I know he loves his mom, so I'm happy to help him do something nice for her. My mother-in-law showed up on the day with Kathy in tow, which was a surprise for everyone. She said that she had run into Kathy at the store as Kathy had recently moved back, and mother-in-law wanted to reintegrate the mother of her grandchild back into the family. I was really upset, but this was only exasperated by my mother-in-law constantly trying to throw my husband and Kathy together. "Kathy, why don't you sit next to him? Kathy, why don't you go help him with the barbecue? Kathy, would you mind asking him where this is?" I spent the whole day biting my tongue, but it was too much when everyone left and my mother-in-law asked Kathy to give my husband a hug. My husband initially refused, but after some pushing from mother-in-law, he relented and hugged Kathy. As soon as they left, I asked my husband what was he thinking. He said he didn't want to upset my mother-in-law on her birthday, but I asked why did he want to upset me. He said that he didn't, he just thought it would be easier to handle with me later. I was furious and said that I expect that either mother-in-law apologize or she's no longer welcome in our home. My husband said that I'm going too far, but I don't think I'm being unreasonable. Was I the jerk? Not the jerk. Easier to handle with you later is code for I'd rather upset you because it's easier to make you forgive me than to deal with the cause of the issue. He allowed his mother to force this because he didn't want to upset her on her birthday when she brought the ex who cheated on him to your home and tried to make them flirt. She deserved to have her birthday ruined. Make your husband deal with his mother. Make it clear that the standard he ignores is that standard he accepts, and even though he normally stands up for you, it's time that he stop the disrespect entirely. My wife, together for 12 years, married for 7, is leaving me for someone that she's known for 3 months. A slight preface. My wife and her brother were very close when they were younger. He started getting into drinking and he went to prison for 10 years. He went immediately back to drinking, then he ended up passing away. My wife, who's 30, and I, 33, started going to the gym together. We were loving the results. It made our love life even better, and we couldn't keep our hands off of each other. We felt as happy and close as ever. 3 weeks after her brother passed, this guy chats her up at the gym, and she immediately clicks with him. I was wary, but I trusted my wife. She's a sweetheart, and I never imagined her having the ability to have an affair. Last weekend, we had one of the most romantic days and evenings that we've had in a while. This week, she decides that she can't go on without finding out why she developed such a quick connection with this guy. We own a house and 3 pets. Her family and everyone we know are devastated and blown away, but she's dead serious. The woman I knew last week even, has left the building. This is a living nightmare that I just want to wake up from. We did couples counseling 3 times and have one scheduled on Wednesday, but she has completely made up her mind and seems to have rapidly fell out of love with me. My life as I know it is over. I just need to get this off my chest. Update. My wife filed for divorce a month after moving out. During this time, I did the whole online dating thing, which was way worse than I could have expected. Kept myself busy working out, building my own confidence, hanging out with friends. In general, it was horrible, but I was trying to keep my head up. I was in therapy, didn't jive with my first therapist, found a new one in December who I liked a lot more, and I'm still seeing her. Mid-December, my wife calls me, crying, asking if she can stay in the guest room because she has nowhere to go. I say yes, even though she hurt me badly, I did still love her. So things with guy from the gym turned very toxic very fast. I know the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot these days. This guy though, it's hard to believe people like him even exist. So she stays in the guest bedroom for a week, then she goes and stays at her parents for a month. She had a nervous breakdown and was able to get medical leave of absence from her work. Mid-January she comes around and she's back at the house, but still in a very frantic and erratic state. I had no idea about the addictive nature of toxic relationships. It's crazy. She's clear that she's too messed up in the head to be in a relationship and is going to work on herself. I gave her the time and space that she requested. She goes all in on learning about the psychology of all of this, inner child work, how the nervous system reacts and attracts you to toxic people if you grew up in a toxic household, anxious and avoidant attachment styles. There's this book called How to Stay Married where the wife had an affair and it turns out the root of the issue was her unresolved trauma. Long story short, same thing happened here. It hurts, but I can forgive her. She's my best friend, and we are insanely compatible in a lot of ways. She's really been returning to herself this past month. She's the happiest that I've seen her in at least a year, and last week, we filed the paperwork to dismiss the divorce. We are both in individual counseling and soon to start couples therapy. I'm sure a lot of people will think I'm making a mistake in reconciling, but I'm happy. I do trust her now that she has the knowledge to not let this happen again, and she has the drive to become the best person that she can be. Edit. I'm reading all of these comments and taking everything to heart, especially the ones calling me stupid, chump, doormat. I completely understand where you're coming from. I just don't have time or desire to respond to so much. I want things to work out, and I do trust my gut that this was a one-time thing. I'll post an update, and I'll take all of the "I told you so" if it comes to that. What boundaries did you set? I'm asking because we only have a couple of posts for insight, and from what's there, it strongly implies she hasn't accepted responsibility nor accountability for what she did to you. Man, she didn't just break your heart, she shattered and then stomped on the pieces. Healthy relationships need trust, respect, and boundaries. She violated all three in the most humiliating way. Is it possible you are just fleeing back into a safe space, your marriage, that in reality doesn't exist anymore? Doesn't read like there's anything stopping her from doing this to you again. Good luck, man, but wow, what she did to you was beyond messed up. The only thing worse would be if you were now raising his kid too. Karen refuses to adopt and will only do IVF. I'm 19, female. My oldest sister, who's 30, has been struggling with infertility for the past 3 years since they started trying for a baby. This Easter, she and her husband made the announcement that they're going to be pursuing IVF and will start a GoFundMe for it. They looked at our parents expectantly and made it quite clear they expect them to front a lot of the cost. We are far from wealthy, and my parents work and save every penny from their labor jobs. I've been working ever since I was 16 to help support the household too, and to save money to move out. Everyone congratulated them on the decision and wished them luck. But when I got a chance, I told them they were being selfish for spending money the family doesn't have just to have a biological kid, especially since there are so many kids out there available for adoption. For context, I was adopted into my family at a young age, so I'm probably very biased about this topic. I think IVF in general is a selfish thing to do, and the fact they can't even pay for it themselves is the cherry on top. Now my sister won't speak to me, and my family members, except one sister, are calling me a jerk for saying that. My one sister says she understands where I'm coming from. Am I the jerk? Edit. Upon further evaluation after reading some comments, I've come to understand my own feelings a bit more. I believe the majority of my hang-up is about IVF itself, not necessarily how my parents choose to spend their money. They are, and have always been, the most generous, kind-hearted people I know, and I wouldn't want that to change about them, and they can use their money however they want to. They wouldn't have taken me in if they weren't the kind of people they are. While I currently morally believe it to be better to adopt rather than spend valuable financial and scientific resources for biological kids, I now see that expressing this opinion was very jerk behavior, and giving any sort of input into this from a moral high horse was really immature and inappropriate of me. Even if I believe it myself and am planning to adopt eventually too, I definitely do not believe in forcing my belief on others, and I definitely do not personally know the struggles of infertility as I'm still in the please don't be pregnant phase of my life. I will try to be less judgmental in the future and apologize to my sister, and I hope she can forgive me for my outburst. There's a lot of confusing emotions that got brought up with her announcement that had nothing to do with her and a lot to do with me. Therapy was suggested a lot. Maybe I will look into it once I have a real job. I didn't think I had any pent-up emotions or issues since my case was easy. My biological parents passed when I was 2, and their friends, aka my godparents, now parents, took me in. I don't even remember my biological parents, so I don't think there can be any issues. I'm not very well versed in the adoption and foster system and figured I would look more into it when it was that time for me, but now is as good a time as any. Thanks for the feedback. Not the jerk. I think you're wrong in your logic, but that doesn't make you a jerk, and I could be wrong in my assessment. I don't think they're selfish for wanting to do IVF instead of adopting. Adopting isn't for everyone, and some people want to have a biological kid if they can. That preference isn't wrong, it's just their preference. However, your older sister is selfish for expecting the family to pay for it, especially when they don't really have the means. Also, if your sister is in a position to afford IVF procedure on her own, is she really in a good financial position to be having a kid? I'm not so sure. Everyone sucks here. It is a truly important lesson that you should never comment on someone's desire to have or not have kids and how they might go about doing that. It is incredibly personal. Infertility is heartbreaking for many. You were absolutely a jerk for what you said. And yes, your history has biased you. It's fine to advocate for adoption. You don't have to call someone selfish while you're doing that. Your sister is a jerk because how you choose to have kids should not become someone else's financial burden. But that's still not your conversation to have. That's your parents' call. You're the jerk. You overstepped. Adoption is great, but it's not for everyone. All sorts of things get factored into that decision. It's not simply about people wanting their kids to be biologically related. Also, adoption is not a no-cost or even low-cost option. Them choosing IVF over adoption is not a personal attack on you. How they decide to grow their family is up to them, even if they're asking others to help with the costs. Whether your parents can or want to contribute financially is up to them. Am I the jerk for asking my brother to pay $30,000 for my engagement ring? Sweet home Alabama. Let's not jump to conclusions, Karen. Let's just read the story. I hosted a family dinner over the weekend. My brother brought my nephews, who are 4 and 8, over as well. I used to wear my engagement ring all the time, but lately I keep it in my walk-in closet and mainly wear it for special occasions. While I was cleaning up the dinner table, my nephews went to go play while the adults were still in the outdoor patio and outdoor kitchen area. My brother was not supervising his kids. During this time, my nephews went into the master bedroom without anyone knowing and started playing with everything, including my engagement ring. When we came to look for them, they panicked because they knew they weren't supposed to be upstairs, ran into the master bathroom, and flushed my ring. We called a plumber in case it was somehow in the U-trap of the toilet and not actually gone. But nope, unfortunately, it was gone for good. We still had the original receipt, so I called my brother. I emailed him a scanned copy as proof of the cost and asked him to reimburse me for the ring my nephew flushed. Immediately, he started calling me a jerk because we were family and he was just a kid. He has refused to pay the cost of my ring. I told him I'll be taking him to court for this, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone, saying family shouldn't sue each other and to just let it go. Edit. No, the ring was not insured. I found out the day after my nephew flushed it. My husband says he forgot and in the end never actually insured it. Edit 2. My brother says he does not have the money to repay even $100 per month and has refused any kind of repayment plan. He said I live in a nice enough house, and if I want a replacement, I should just sell my car. Edit 3. My brother, to this day, has not truly apologized. He said kids will do what is normal for kids, and they shouldn't be held responsible for a ring. They were supposed to supervise their kids outdoors with the rest of the family while I was busy cleaning up. Edit 4. I don't believe for a second my brother and his wife cannot pay for the cost of my engagement ring. They don't make anything near my husband, but they have a combined income of around $250,000. They don't pay rent or anything because my parents gifted them their old house, valued at $3.5 million in Toronto, back when I bought my parents a new home years ago. There's no mortgage on the home my brother lives in. The only things my brother and his wife would have to pay is the cost of raising their kids, normal bills, and food. I feel so distraught because my ring holds great sentimental value. I've already been speaking with my husband's family lawyer, but at this point, I'm ready to hire a private investigator to find out if they really don't have the money. Not the jerk. His circus, his monkeys. He wasn't watching them, that's on him. 100% he should replace your ring. As for all the family who are blowing up at you, it's easy, when it didn't happen to them, to preach forgiveness. Ignore them. Also, 8 and 4 are more than old enough to know better. My 3-year-old knows not to touch someone else's things in their home without asking. Choices have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are expensive. Sorry this happened to you. You didn't insure a $30,000 ring? For those of you who say the insurance isn't the point, of course it's the point. The point of this whole thing is the sheer amount of money involved. Crap happens all the time. Kids get into things, dogs eat things, partners lose things. Anything that you value is on you to insure or protect. You're the jerk for walking around with a $30,000 liability the size of a marble and then pointing fingers at whoever touched it last before it disappeared. Not the jerk. Your family is right. Family shouldn't sue each other because it should be repaid without courts. Literally 90% of people can't afford a random $30,000 bill, but they can absolutely afford to repay it back over time. Her ring is gone, and it's gone through no fault of her own. She is owed restitution. Am I the jerk for canceling on family vacation after my newly widowed mom decided to bring her new boyfriend? My dad lost his 1.5-year battle with cancer 1 year ago, April of 2022, at only 62 years old. He and my mom were married for 31 years. The few months before my dad got sick, he and my mom were not on great terms and were contemplating divorce. However, through my dad's diagnosis and extreme ups and downs of treatment, they came together, squashed some of their issues, and my mom was there to care for my dad every step of the way. I miss him every day. Me and my mom had always been pretty close, but since my dad passed, I feel like I'm seeing and talking to her less and less these days, and it makes me sad. In August of 2022, 4 months after my dad passed, my mom started seeing someone. She'd call him her friend, slip in mentions of him in conversation, but I personally wanted nothing to do with him. Still don't. I thought it was too soon, and I told her so. Everyone grieves differently, and dating after losing a spouse is hard, but conversations I've attempted with this guy and the chemistry between them have been super awkward in my opinion. I feel like she's disregarding any feelings or pushback that's me, my sister, or extended family have about this relationship. Large extended family, all very close-knit. She has now started bringing him to events and parties, and there's an awkward vibe when he's around. Nobody wants to say it out loud. This past week, he showed up unexpectedly at our family Easter party at my parents' house. My mom knew he was coming and did not mention to anyone. Following tradition, we stood in prayer before we ate dinner, and my uncle prayed out loud for those who we have lost, and I felt so awkward that my mom's boyfriend was there, holding hands with my family as we talked about my dad, in my dad's house, almost only a year to the day that he passed. We're now booking flights for a large family vacation in June. Condo has already been booked for months, and my mom casually mentioned at Easter that she's bringing her boyfriend. I didn't hear this at the time and found out later from a cousin. I immediately called and told her my feelings about him going. I don't want him to, and she completely changed the subject and did not acknowledge what I told her at all. Not to mention, we had decided to leave a day early to save money on flights, but now that her boyfriend is going, it will actually cost me more because we will no longer be splitting the costs that we originally planned since they will be doing things separately. Money is not the problem though. It's now principle to me. Of the 20 family members that will be on this trip, not one person really wants him to be there except her. He will be staying in the same condo, and we're going to have to tiptoe around this awkward situation for an entire week while we should be relaxing and enjoying family time together. Am I the jerk for wanting to cancel on the family vacation and/or stick to my guns about not wanting her boyfriend to go, even though she already booked his flight? You're the jerk. Sounds like your mom put aside the reason she wanted to divorce your dad to be there for him in his time of need and to honor their 31 years together. I'm sure you've read on Reddit how many men abandon their spouses when they get diagnosed with cancer. Your mom stayed until the end for him, even though the marriage was done. She stayed with him through his cancer and helped him. And now what? You're mad that she has a chance at happiness again? How many years of her life does she have to sacrifice before you decide it's okay for her to be happy? 1 to 2 years to nurse him, 1 year to grieve. That's already at least 3 years of sacrifice for an older woman who wanted to be free and have a better life. It doesn't matter what you think of her boyfriend. My own mom is dating someone I don't like, but I'm not going to say anything because he makes her happy. And yes, I'm going on an awkward family trip with them. Be a better kid to your mom. Goodness. You're the jerk. Your parents' marriage was over. If they were together for 31 years and talking divorce, dude, it's been over for a while. She sucked it up because he was dying. It's an awkward vibe because instead of being mature and being happy your mom found someone who makes her happy, you guys are refusing to be open. You're the jerk. Grow up. Your mother and father were already contemplating divorce. She stayed with him through his illness anyway. She didn't move on too quickly or do anything wrong. I'm sorry for your loss, but seriously, your mother deserves to be happy. You're the jerk. You said yourself that they were having marital problems before your dad's illness. Your mother did right by him and cared for him, but the issues were still there. just squashed as you call it. It makes sense that she moved on faster than you because her relationship with him was different than yours. He was your dad, but for her, he was a husband who she was considering divorcing. If this new man treats her well and makes her happy, just be happy for her. Don't you think she deserves to be happy? Not the jerk. I was wondering why everyone is tearing you to shreds. Honestly, my heart goes out to you, and I'd feel the same way if I were in your shoes. Then I saw in the comments that you're actually a male. Then it all made sense. If this was written by a daughter about her father, everyone would be telling her to go no contact with him. Gotta love Reddit. Nothing wrong with your noise? Let's see how you like it when you have a baby. I live in an 80s-style duplex building made of concrete cinder block bricks and moved in here mid-2016. My neighbor has a mirror of my apartment. They are both 2 levels with a gallery staircase in the middle. I love it here so much, but my neighbor, oh my goodness. We actually used to get along all right, and that was mostly because I like to keep the peace. But he loves having every door and window of his home open, and I live in a part of the world that is hot and humid for about 3/4 of the year. We also live right by a busy road. This wouldn't be that much of an issue, but his music and movies have to compete with the outside noise as well as the noise from his fans. He refuses to use his air conditioner. The result, even at low levels, is a booming bass in some of my rooms due to the resonance. It drives me crazy, and this could happen at any time of the day or night. I was losing sleep, and my mind was at wit's end. We finally fell out about a year ago. I had tried asking, begging, pleading, passive aggression. Every avenue had been exhausted by this point. I convinced him to come over to my house and just listen so he can hear for himself what I'm talking about, and thought surely he would realize that he needs to stop, or at least seriously adjust his sound settings. He said there was absolutely nothing wrong, and so I decided to change tack and increase the levels of my own system, much better than his, to roughly where his was. And again, he said there was nothing wrong and that he wasn't going to change anything. I was told that my sound wasn't able to be heard at their place and that I could leave the levels as they were and would just have to live with whatever sound came out of their home. At this point, I also started searching for phrases like narcissist or just a jerk to try to figure him out. He got with this lady he had been talking to, and it's an absurd and toxic relationship, but not my problem, and I figured at least he wasn't playing sound that boomed through my bedroom in the middle of the night. Anyway, cut to a few months ago, I noticed he had some old baby stuff on his patio that looked like it was bought from a garage sale 30 years ago, and then in the following months, I see his girlfriend with a definite baby bump. By now, I bet you can see where this is going. And so by that point, assuming things weren't going to change, I knew they wouldn't. This past month, my neighbor and his girlfriend have welcomed an adorable little screaming baby, which I can't hear from my place at all, thankfully. But apparently, they absolutely can hear sound coming from my place and told me as much when they knocked this week, and I greeted them with a big smile and congratulations. They told me that they're getting no sleep at all and that they're at their wits' end. They asked, begged, and pleaded with me to turn my sound system down, and I reminded my neighbor that my sound wasn't able to be heard from their house, and even if they could hear my sound, then they can just live with it. I might reduce the settings slightly once I know for sure that a lesson has been learned, and I'm well aware that this would fit in Am I the Jerk and Petty Revenge, but I thought I'd give it a go here. Am I the jerk for hiding vegetables in my boyfriend's food? I, 28 female, have been with my boyfriend, who's 36, for a year, and we moved in together about 4 months ago. One of the first things I noticed about my boyfriend was that he never really eats vegetables. He would sometimes eat them if we were out at a restaurant and they came as part of his meal, but he never ate them when I cooked for him. Originally, I thought that maybe my cooking was the problem, so I asked him if he enjoyed my food, and he told me he loves my cooking. On nights I didn't cook for him, he ate exclusively frozen foods and never ate the vegetables in those either. Naturally, he has some health issues, vitamin deficiencies, etc. He had phrased to me as if it were something just genetically unlucky. I believed it for a while because I don't know how that stuff works, but eventually it became clear to me it's because he voluntarily eats a vegetable like once a month. 6 months ago, I started hiding vegetables in my cooking. If I was making pasta, I'd put the vegetables in. I'd usually put in for myself. Just take half out and blend it so that he wouldn't notice the vegetable chunks, and then just tell him I'd scoop the vegetables out of his portion. This happens more often now that we live together because I do all of the cooking. He's been telling me a lot lately. He's been feeling a lot better the past few months and has even had his doctor reduce the dosage of some of his medications, and he hasn't had to take his multivitamin in weeks. I kept my mouth shut because I'm just glad he's feeling better, and it really does me no harm to hide the vegetables in his food. Yesterday, I was making one of our regular pasta meals. It's one that's very easy to hide at least 4 veggies in, and I was about to blend my boyfriend's portion when the blender died mid-blend. I had to serve it all in its vegetable chunky glory. My boyfriend refused to eat the vegetables, but when he tasted the sauce, he said it's weird how it tastes the exact same even though this one has vegetables in it. So I confessed. He screamed at me and called me a controlling jerk and said that it's none of my business if he thinks vegetables don't do anything. I pointed out that he said he felt better. He said his health was none of my business and that I'm a controlling, judgy jerk, and stormed out of our apartment to stay with his sister. His sister texted me to say he's fine, but she agrees with him. My friends agree it's ridiculous that he didn't eat vegetables, but agree that I'm being the jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is a grown man 8 years older than you. If he has a problem with your cooking, let him make his own food. He's already coddled by his sister and doesn't and shouldn't need to be coddled by you. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.